Yes.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. جزاكم الله خير everyone for joining. This session is titled Census 2020, Make Muslims Count. And the idea is to try to mobilize and motivate the Muslim community to begin with, but also our neighbors and community to participate in this important initiative and make sure that Muslims and non-Muslims from our friends and families and co-workers understand the importance of the participation. And subhanAllah, especially nowadays with what is happening with the COVID-19 and the expectation that the government has to step in significantly to help the population. The census becomes very critical in understanding the population and the distribution in the different states, so the government can allocate funds accordingly to help in the next few months, if not years to come. So with that, I would like to introduce the panel who will be participating or covering sections, and we will have some time, inshallah, at the end, maybe for a little bit of a discussion, since this is a recorded session, so there might not be opportunity to get public questions and answers, but we will try to have some discussions between the panelists to cover some aspects that hopefully will answer a lot of the questions that and concerns that some of the population and the community members have. So the contents very quickly was to talk about the census. What is it? Because there are a little bit of confusion here and there about it. And this will be done by Brother Rashad from the LA Census Bureau. Then we'll talk about the meaning of the census from a civil rights perspective, and that will be covered by Brother Fayaz from the CAIR LA chapter. And then we'll talk about the importance of it all, and from maybe social aspects from Brother Muhammad from the AccessCalifornia. And then I'll try to kind of introduce a little bit of Islamic dimension to it as much as I can towards the end. So with this, I'll hand it to Brother Rashad Dabagh, the program representative of the US Census Bureau. Brother Rashad, go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for having me. My name is Rashad. I'm a partnership specialist with the US Census Bureau. And I'm gonna talk a little bit about the importance of the census and the operations, what it looks like. So first of all, I would like to say that this census is going to be the most important census in your lifetime. It's going to impact the next 10 years. The next decade will be impacted by our response, by how many people respond to this census. Our aim is to count everyone once, only once, and in the right place. So why do we do a census? It's simple. It's in the Constitution. The Constitution of the United States mandates, Article 1, Section 2 of the Constitution mandates that we do a census once every 10 years. And we have been doing a census every 10 years since 1790. Based on the census count, we will reapportion the House of Representatives. So based on the census count, each state will get its number of representatives, number of seats in Congress, and it will vary from every 10 years. It will change based on the population shifts. So just to compare, for example, In 2010, California, after the census that happened in 2010, California kept all its seats. New York lost 2 seats, and Texas gained 4 seats. So it depends on the census numbers. Also, federal funds distributed to each state depend on the census results. So $675 billion every year for the next 10 years will be distributed to states and counties and communities, and it all depends on how many people counted in those states. So that's why it's very important to count. Federal funds depend on it. Our communities depend on those federal funds. Okay, so this is a timeline. Can we go to a slide before this? There's some changes that occurred. Address canvassing have already happened. The operations that are taking place right now, update leave, that happens in rural areas. Service-based enumeration is the opportunity to count folks who are receiving services at centers such as homeless shelters. Initially, this should have occurred in later this month, next week, but because of what's happening, the census is already challenging, but now with COVID-19, there's more challenges. So that's why it's so important to fill out the forms online and get it out of the way. But service-based enumeration, counting homeless populations, the new operation timeline will be from April 29 to May 1st. And then group quarters operations, that is the opportunity to count folks at college dorms, counting nursing homes, people at nursing homes, and group homes and so on. So that operation was supposed to take place in March. Now it's going to happen between April 16 and June 19. So for example, folks at college dorms should be counted at their dorms, not at their families' homes, even if they are at home right now. So instead of completing this whole operation right now, it's going to be extended between April 16 until June 19. Almost everyone should have received their forms, their letters that tells you how to fill out your form online or by phone. That's the opportunity to self-respond. Everyone should have received it. I received it around March 12th. So you get that letter, you open it, you look at it, and it tells you how to fill out your form online. I did it the other day. It's easy, simple. April 1st is Census Day. That's the benchmark day. And then after that, non-response follow-up, that has also extended. And now the entire operation should be completed in August 14. It was scheduled to end in July 31st. Now it has been extended to August 14th. I'm talking about the non-response follow-up. And if we can go to the next slide. So invitations have been sent out. March 16th to 24th, you're supposed to have received a reminder letter. If you don't respond online or by phone, you will get a reminder postcard between March 26th and April 3rd. April 8 to 16, a reminder letter and a paper questionnaire. So if you have already filled out your census form online or by phone, you will not receive the paper questionnaire. If you haven't, then you will receive your paper questionnaire. And I encourage everyone to get it done now and avoid being in contact with a census enumerator who will knock on your door after a final reminder postcard sometime around April 20 to 27th. After that, census enumerators are supposed to go door to door to those who did not respond and help you fill out your census forms. The new operation timing for the non-response follow-up is May 7th to August 14th. Instead of late April and now it has been extended from May 7th to August 14th. Can we go to the next? So I want to talk a little bit about the confidentiality. The census is confidential and required by law. Results are reported in statistical formats only. So no respondents' personal information will ever be shared. It's only in statistical format. Your information will not be shared with any other government agencies, not Homeland Security, not ICE, not the FBI, not even the White House. So everything in the census stays in the census. All of our employees, including myself, swear to a lifetime oath to protect respondent information. And a lifetime oath, not until I am done with the census. This is all protected by Title 13 of the US Code. Penalties for wrongful disclosure are up to 5 years imprisonment and or a fine of $150,000, and there hasn't been any wrongful disclosure since this law was implemented. And to make it easy on everyone, we are supporting linguistically diverse populations, language access. So the paper form, the paper questionnaire will be in English and in Spanish. Folks can respond in either language. The online form, you will have the opportunity to respond in any of 13 languages. The 12 non-English languages include Spanish, Chinese, Vietnamese, Korean, Russian, Arabic, Tagalog, Polish, French, Haitian Creole, Portuguese, and Japanese. There will be questionnaire assistance centers at various community centers and locations to help folks fill out their forms, and other items will be available in 59 non-English languages. If you would be interested, if you're interested in learning more in the statistics in each census tract, you can go to census.gov/Rome. And this specific census tract in Santa Ana has a low response rate of 31%. That means 31% of this tract that's shown on the screen, folks did not respond last census, and that means they have lost a lot of federal funds, and we want to make sure to avoid that. It is so important to avoid these low response scores and make sure that all of our communities, all of our vulnerable communities, and when I say everyone counts, that means everyone, regardless of whether you're a citizen, whether you're a resident, whether you're undocumented, whether you're an international student that lives in the US, everybody gets counted. This is a great resource for you to look up and see statistics in each census tract. So next step, we want to make sure that we generate readiness for 2020 census. It all started, so it's important to emphasize that everyone please go online, my2020census.gov, fill out your form online or by phone, and make sure you get that out of the way. No need to be in contact with the census enumerator. That's not the right time for it. So let's get the count done. Let's mobilize our community. Join a complete count committee if you'd like to be more involved. There's a Muslim complete count committee. There are city complete count committees. Be involved in it, and then invite us to speak at your event. Obviously, there are no more events happening these days, so any meetings like this, we will be there to make sure we reach out to all of our hard to count communities, all of our Muslim communities, make sure everyone is aware and ready to be counted.
Inshallah, Jazakumullah khair, Brother Rashad. Very comprehensive, and just a quick follow-up on what you said. I did receive it personally, actually twice, and it was relatively simple. just simple code, maybe 12 digits, if I remember correctly. Went to the website, put it in, took a couple of minutes, simple and easy. And I do have a couple of questions for you, but that will be in the QA section. I think next is Brother Fayaz Nawabi from CAIR, Greater Los Angeles. Brother Fayaz, go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. This is Fayaz Nawabi. I serve as the Policy and Advocacy Manager at the Council on American Islamic Relations LA office. Just a couple points that I wanted to really emphasize on. Now, my portion is to talk about some of the civil rights aspects of how US Census really impacts us. Alhamdulillah, CAIR California was blessed to become an administrative community-based organization for the state of California. Basically, what that means is CAIR California is doing outreach work in conjunction with the state of California to reach out to the MENA population, which is the Middle Eastern and North African communities. So what we have been doing is really using our name of CAIR, and because we're a trusted messenger with the populations of the Arab, Middle Eastern, Muslim, South Asian communities, and really getting the community to understand the importance of census, whether it's during our khutbahs. I know many folks have probably heard me give khutbah in Irvine to LA to the Riverside and Inland Empire areas to Santa Barbara, talking about census. And these are things that have historically not been with the Muslim community. And as Rashad mentioned earlier, we are realizing how important it is for our communities to get counted. Because getting counted really entails us getting power, right? Brother Rashad mentioned something really important about what happened in 2010. With states like Texas gaining 4 congressional seats and states like New York losing 2 congressional seats, that has great impacts not only to the Muslim community, but also to the broader community as far as civil rights is concerned, because that tells us that legislation that affects all of our communities, whether it's privacy legislation, whether it's things like the Muslim ban, those issues are going to come up in the halls of Congress. And when we start losing congressional seats in districts that have historically been supporting us, that makes us very vulnerable to losing our civil liberties. That's one of the things that we really want to emphasize. We need to get our community counted so that we do not lose congressional seats. The state of California right now is at risk of losing either 1 or 2 congressional seats. So it's really, really important that our communities fill out the census forms. It does not take too long. It took me only 6 minutes to complete it. And Brother Rashad was mentioning, because of the passage of Title 13, we know that our information is not being shared. That's why questions like how many people are in your household is asked, even though you ask, oh, well, doesn't HUD have that information, or doesn't the IRS have this information? These agencies cannot share information amongst each other because of Title 13. That's why those questions are being asked, and that's why we want to make sure our communities fill this out. In addition to, not losing congressional seats, there's the issue of redistricting. Right now, I serve on the redistricting advisory commission for the state of California. And we know that one of the ways and the next level for the Muslim community to really, really get more power and really get our voices heard is in the redistricting process. The redistricting process. Why is this important? Because we know when you look at congressional maps or city council maps or state legislative maps, where people live in those districts and the populations of our communities living in those districts, we could impact elections at the municipal, state, and federal level based on how these maps are mapped out. Okay, so what this lets us do is get our community into a position where we have a say on, hey, you know, there's this huge population of Muslims. We don't want, or our community, the Memsa community, and we don't want them packed into one district, because even though we'll win overwhelmingly in that district, what it really tells us is we won't have any real sway in other districts, right? So you want to make sure you proportion all of communities evenly in these districts. So that way, our voice just in one district, it'll be in several districts. So this is one of the really important issues that here at CAIR, we're really trying to get the community to understand also. I would also add that Brother Rashad also mentioned that US Census Day is on April 1st, and CAIR, in conjunction with USCMO, with the United States Coalition of Muslim Organizations, where MAS is a part of, and we have many national organizations, including ICNA and MUNA and others, a part of this. We were also working on having the Muslim Census Day be on April 3rd, because Jum'ah is on April 3rd, right? So we had like talking points and all these things ready for the khatibs at the national level to really emphasize the importance of filling out their census for surveys, inshallah. But unfortunately, because of COVID-19, inshallah, things, you know, calm down again. But we're gonna, inshallah, either keep that same day if things calm down and we're allowed to congregate again, or extend the date to another time also. Now, Brother Rashad also mentioned about that census tract in Santa Ana. Census affects not only congressional seats, not only redistricting and mapping of these electoral seats, but it also affects funding for our communities. Santa Ana is a community that is very impoverished, and there's a lot of marginalized communities. And let's just talk about just a couple of these services that census directly impacts if our communities do not get counted. Affordable housing is one of them. And we know how important affordable housing units are, and the funding that is directly impacted through the census survey numbers. So if our communities don't get counted, then affordable housing funding is going to decrease. Programs like SNAP, food stamps, Head Start, all of these programs that impact communities of color predominantly and communities that are impoverished. These programs directly impact us, and the hard to count populations are our communities that are limited English proficiency, that, you know, English is a secondary language and the like thereof, and we need those resources the most. And maybe us personally do not need those resources. However, if we get counted, we could help those communities that do need those resources. So it's really, really important that we get all of our communities counted. Now, one of the questions that always pops up is, you know, I am Arab or I'm X ethnicity. Why do I have to why do I have to fill myself out as white and then put my ethnicity in the other area? I'm sure Rashad is going to go over that a little bit in the Q&A session. But one of the reasons why this had become a reality was in the early 20th century. There was a large Lebanese population in the U.S., not like super large, but there was a Lebanese population here in the U.S. And those fields were separated, but because of the, you know, rampant racism that was going on, I mean, we still have many racist elements in our government or in America in general. However, at that time, it was very rampant. So folks that were filling out as Arab and certain ethnicities, they were experiencing a great deal of racism and xenophobia. So there was a great deal of fear during that time. So that's why some of those fields were changed. However, I'm sure Brother Rashad will go into the details of, you know, what we're going to do to really challenge this, because it is really important that we get our communities counted with specific ethnicities. And then finally, I will close with this. 30 years ago, the American Muslim community was a community that thought it was haram to vote. I'm sure that many of you heard khutbahs in the 90s. I used to hear khutbahs in the early 90s of saying it's haram to vote and don't get involved. But then, alhamdulillah, 20 years ago, our community started to get more civically engaged, started to register to vote, started to vote. And then we became a community that were protesting outside of the rooms where the decisions were being made. Then 10 years ago, our community, alhamdulillah, started to get into the room where the decisions were being made that were going to affect not only our community, but all communities. Now, alhamdulillah, our community is in a position where we can help build the table and influence the way decisions are being made. And one of the ways that our community can influence the way decisions are made is through getting each one of us counted. Because our numbers don't really matter if we don't count it. Our numbers will not really matter if we don't get counted. And that really affects the civil rights of our communities. That affects the power of our community if we do not get counted. And inshallah, finally, please get yourself counted. Fill out the census survey. You could go on the US Census website. It only takes 5 to 6 minutes to complete that census survey for yourself and your family members. 5 to 6 minutes, and it could really impact over $700 billion of funding for the next 10 years. So it's really important. Every single one of us get counted. And we have a Muslim complete count committee here in Southern California. Alhamdulillah, thanks to the efforts of Brother Rashad, CAIR, and the Southern California Shura Council, including Access California, who's also a part of the complete count committee. If you want more information about that, please feel free to contact us, inshallah, and we will get you plugged in, which is Jazakumullah khair.
جزاكم الله خير ما شاء الله. Fayaz, you already actually answered a few questions that I had specifically about the information. If the information is with DMV and IRS, and Medicare and all of that, why they are asking for that information again. So Jazakumullah khair for that, and I'm sure we will have some discussion in the Q&A. Next, inshallah, we'll have Brother Muhammad Hijazi from AccessCalifornia to talk to us about the different aspects of the census. Go ahead, Brother Muhammad.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Peace be upon all of you who are joining us later today on this recording. My name is Muhammad Hijazi, and I'm part of Access California Services, which is a nonprofit organization dedicated to empower the underserved population with a focus on the Arab American and the Muslim American communities. And we strive to enhance the quality of life and enrich lives and, uplift their dignity. As for the census, as you all know, I just wanted to thank Brother Muhammad, Brother Fayaz, Brother Rashad for giving us these great pointers. Fadak, you're up next, so good luck, inshallah. Now, as you know, the US Census 2020 has started. The information they provided you already was more than, great. Just a couple pointers that I wanted to add. Why this is important in a social service, type of way into which it can help community grow. So the first thing that we need to do is why the census matters. By gathering the data about the numbers of individuals living in the United States is able to develop a true snapshot of our cities, states, and overall nations. So if you look at this point, this is what helps the U.S. kind of determine and allocate its funds to the areas that we live in. Now, the census drives decisions by making the impact that the lives of each and every person living in the United States. Decisions making regarding the civil rights allocation of federal funds of $700 billion towards states and localities. So to understand this more, the more we have individuals filling out the census, the more we are able to receive from the $700 billion of funds. Our community, unfortunately, is a community in which lacks upon this, and it is upon us to voice our knowledge into the rest of the community and make sure they're part of the census. In the previous census, it was estimated that 15 million or more Californians were not counted. If you think about that as a big number, 15 million people did not take the census in 2000. Now it is upon us, a part of CAIR, Access, Mass, the rest of the organizations, to fill this message and to fill our words, use our voice, channel that voice, and to spread the message in our communities and make sure everyone takes the census. Now, if you look at bullet number 2, this is a crazy statistic if you were to look at. For each person who is not counted, there's a loss of $2,000 per year in federal funding. So every person that does not fill out the census, we lose $2,000 per person per head every single year. So if you think about it, within the next decade, each person that doesn't fill out the census, we lose $20,000 in federal funds. It is extremely critical that we spread the message and make sure everybody is participating in this year's census. For each person who is not counted, there's also a potential loss of seat in Congress, which Brother Fayaz and Brother Rashad went over. And it is important as Californians, we take care of that. Now, next, as part of AccessCal, it is important to understand where we're focused. We're focused on the hard to count population. So these are individuals, the hard to count populations are individuals living in a remote or rural area, limited English or no English at all, homeless, general lack awareness. First communities that come to mind are, unfortunately, one of them is our community. Many of us, back in the Middle East, they do have something called the census, but they don't take it seriously. What's good about the US is, the US takes us very, very seriously and is able to help us, establish our communities in the right way. Now, who are the hard to count population? The MENA community, the Middle Eastern and North African region. This is one of the communities in which we are focusing on, as well as the Latinos, the African Americans, the Asian Americans, the immigrants, refugees, farm workers, people with disabilities, homeless, veterans, seniors, and children between 0 to 5. These are all hard to count population. This is what AccessCalifornia Services is really focusing on during this census. Now, just a quick history lesson. AccessCal was working with the U.S. Congress on pushing this MENA upon the census, into which people can fill this out and check the box. Unfortunately, it was going well, but as soon as Trump came into president, he erased that from the census. We were going to be able to select that as a community, but unfortunately this year we won't be able to. I'm sure Brother Rashad or Brother Fayaz or Brother Muhammad will have questions on what we should fill when it comes to that. But from our directions is to put other and then put the country into which you're from. So if we go on to the next slide. The 2020 census concerns is the hard to count population not completing their questionnaire, of course, due to lack of awareness. The fear of completing it, thinking that the government's going to be able to, receive their information about citizenship, whether they are citizens or refugees or asylums. Not sure if they're, going to remain in the United States. This all comes from fear, and it is upon us, to erase that from every individual and make sure that none of this information will be shared with ICE or any other type of organization into which can impact their lives. Now, Brother Rashad went over this, and this is what he's doing. For any violation that occurs, a staff member will be faced a penalty of up to $250,000 or 5 years in prison. So understand, believe, and trust in the people that are really working in the census, that your information will not be released. They take a lifetime oath to protect this information. So trust in them, and we'll be able to trust in you as well. Your information is not leaked to the FBI, the CIA, the DHS, the ICE organizations. It is strictly remained with the Census Bureau. So here's the 2020 census timeline. January to September 2019, the Census Bureau opened 248 areas, census offices across the country. Thanks to God, California Services is one of them, into which individuals who have questions can come to Access California Services. We are a question assistance center. You can come in and we are able to help you fill out your census, answer your questions. And it is important to understand we cannot fill any information that they do not give us. It's exactly what they provide for us is what we fill. Even if we know the answers, it's upon them to let us know what they are filling. So if anyone has a question, you're more than welcome to come to Access California Services. Now here's the 2020 census timeline. April 1st, as we all know, is a census day. It's observed nationwide. I know the Muslim community was trying to push for April 3rd, which is a Friday. Unfortunately, through this coronavirus, we'll see what we can do from there on out. Maybe select a different census day, inshallah. The Census Bureau begins visiting homes that haven't responded on May. So during May, the census will come knocking on your door. This can change, especially since this whole coronavirus thing. They might be knocking on your door at a later time. Just remember, they're not going to come into your house, count the people in your home, take people out. They're just going to come remind you to take the census if you did not do it yourself. And for 2020, the Census Bureau delivers the apportion count to the Congress, and this is required by law. Lastly, AccessCal's role in the 2020 census. This is AccessCal's third time participating in the census, being one of the lead organizations. So if you think about it, that's 3 decades, 30 years into which AccessCal has been working on this. Our executive founder, Nahla Kayali, was appointed by the governor back in 2010 for the previous center. She was appointed to the executive community for Orange County Census Program. We are really pushing upon this. We are responsible about the MENA community, as I know, as well as CAIR, and the other organizations, as well as MASS. It is upon every single individual to spread by word to their family, friends, but also on your social media platforms. If you see something, retweet it, share it. The more message, the more allocation or federal fund allocation will be sent to us. And that, inshallah, concludes Access California's role. If anyone has any further questions, you're more than welcome to reach out to us. We will be here for the question and answer. And thank you for listening to myself and the 3 other brothers that participated so far.
Jazakallah khair, Brother Muhammad. A great segment, great information about the loss of the money and the 15 million, that wasn't counted. These are just amazing numbers. And also the aspect of people not participating and the protection of data. One thing I'll mention quickly that proves that there is still some, at least checks and balances in the system. When Trump wanted to, and his ilk wanted to add the citizenship question to the census, he was faced, or they were faced by a lot of resistance, and they couldn't do it. They just couldn't do it, and that
Definitely.
Yep, that's a good at least check to see that the system still works. They managed to compromise a lot of the checks and balances out there, but there are still a lot of things that work, and hopefully and thankfully, census is one tool that the population can still use to get their or make their voice be heard.
And subhanAllah, I would say about this, it's already difficult to get our communities to get counted. And we're doing the work of the Trump administration if we don't get counted, because they don't want to give to programs like affordable housing. They don't want to give money to programs like SNAP, food stamps, and Head Start. So when we don't get counted, we're doing exactly what they want us to do.
Yep.
It is important that we get all of our communities counted. And I'll say one other thing real quick. Those 15 million people that did not get counted in the state of California, they cost the state $300 million. That's a lot of money. So think about how many programs we could have funded with $300 million just in our state.
Mm-hmm. And for those listening, we keep saying where the federal funds, we're able to receive the federal funds. For those who don't know, the federal funds, they go into funding our hospitals, our fire departments, our schools, our roads, other resource-based census data. So it is important. It comes back to us, to our hospitals, our schools. Remember that, two critical and important factors, our roads as well. So it comes back to items that we use.
Correct.
And don't forget to count your babies, your children, 0 to 5. People tend to forget to count them because they think maybe it's something like voting where there's an age. But if you have I just have a 5-month-old baby. I just counted her. She needs to be counted because in 6 years, inshallah, she'll be in 3rd grade. And if every 6-year-old in 6 years is not counted, that means we will not have a correct estimate of how many children are in 1st grade and how much funding schools will get. So it's so important to count everyone, including our young children.
In 3 years or 4 years old, you might need child care and send her to early
start.
Wow.
Exactly.
And one thing that I'll follow up very quickly about the fear aspect of it is the similar to the techniques or tactics that some people unfortunately use, which is the intimidation. They intimidate, the minorities not to show up, to be fearful of speaking out and be counted. So similar techniques to the intimidation that we saw or we see frequently in voting booths. There is a little bit of that going on with the census as well. They would like the minorities not to speak out and not to be counted. So I'll segue to my segment, which is a little bit of a dimension, an Islamic dimension to it, maybe a reminder to myself more than anybody else to tell you the truth, as the idea is not being, more superior or more knowledgeable than the brothers in here or the brothers and sisters that will be listening, but just an opportunity for me to stop and think a little bit about activism and what it means to be a Muslim. I failed to introduce myself at the beginning. My name is Muhammad Amala, and I've been in SoCal for maybe 25 years since I came from Egypt. And I've been working with different organizations. But lastly, I've been helping with the mass PACE, basically segment of mass specifically, because I'm passionate about the civic engagements and working with people and trying to mobilize our community, starting with myself, to be more active in the community out there, not just our Muslim community, but also the community at large. And from time to time, we kind of question our activism. Does it really basically make a difference? That's usually something that comes up frequently. And the census is one of that specifically. If we filled it and are counted and so on, will it make a difference or not? And I'm always reminded by the verse that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that وَإِن تَتَوَلَّوْا يَسْتَبْدِلُ قَوْمًا غَيْرَكُمْ ثُمَّ لَا يَكُونُوا أَمْثَالَكُمْ. Which means if you turn your back from spending in the way of Allah, and spending in this verse is not necessarily means the financial aspect only and money, but anything that you see of a value, which is the time and the effort and the energy. If we don't dedicate a good portion of that to serve Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and his message, the Prophet's message, and Islam in general, then it's very easy for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to replace us And again, I can't not mention that what we're seeing and struggling with as a whole humanity with the COVID-19 is something that reminds us how easy is for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as our creator to replace us with another generation. It doesn't have to mean that all of us will die immediately, but we will be irrelevant. Basically, we will just not be active or changing agent in the societies, and we will wait for another generation to do the work for us. So as long as we're living, we need to remind ourselves that we need to do as much as possible, the best we can, to be the followers of the religion that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has selected for for humanity, and to represent that in the best way possible. Next slide. There's also this verse that it's very essential in my understanding of activism in general, and doing what I do, let it be on the work or family or anything else. Whenever somebody tells me, oh, there's no hope, there is no use, it won't make a difference. The same argument was mentioned in this verse, with قالت أمة منهم لما تعظون قوما الله مهلكهم أو معذبهم عذابا شديدا قالوا معذرة إلى ربكم ولعلهم يتقون. So same argument, some people says to the advice, let them be prophets or beacons of hope, or the agents, or whatever you want to call them, people that wanted to change things to the better. And so some will talk to them and says, why are you wasting your time trying to advise, and it's already done deal. They are disbelievers, or they go to hell, or they will not change their mind. They will continue to do the sins that they are doing. We're weak. We cannot be a powerful community. We cannot be a powerful people, and so on. They said, even if that's the truth, then we will need to do our part no matter what. We will need to do our part because that's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has asked us to do. And there's a hope. There's always hope. Maybe. How can we tell the result of our advice and our effort in general? Next. This story and this hadith, subhanAllah, you think that you've heard them all from the hundreds and hundreds of khutbahs that you attend, and and speeches, and some stuff that you read, but you always, subhanAllah, be surprised of what you don't know. So I ran into this hadith recently, and it's in the Sahih, and comes also in different versions from different sources, so it's very supportive of each other. That the Prophet ﷺ was asking Ja'far ibn Abi Talib, which is his cousin, is the brother of Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anhuma. So he came back from Abyssinia. As you all know, they went to Abyssinia, maybe 80 people, to flee from the persecution of Quraysh. And they were what you can think of as refugees or asylum seekers in Abyssinia, which is known now as Ethiopia in East Africa. So they flee, and that's in itself, by the way, this trip, this migration of these 80 plus Muslims, and they had women and I think some children also. But this fleeing and the refugee trip that they have made, it tells you of the at least the political aspects that the Prophet ﷺ had, because he knew about Abyssinia, he knew about the king, which is called the Negus or Najashi. This is his title, that he was a fair ruler. So he picked that for the people to because they couldn't stand the persecution that the Quraysh was putting upon them. So that selection itself is an example of, subhanAllah, of political the Prophet ﷺ and the people around them. And then when you see also how did they kind of interact and mobilize this 80 people, which is a minority in a largely a Christian nation of Ethiopia at that time, very, very committed to Christianity. They mobilized, because what happened is Quraysh did not leave them alone. They start what you can call a campaign to go after them and say, these Muslims are troublemakers. They were criminals. And not only this, they were started. Did you hear about what they are saying about Maryam alayhi salam and Isa alayhi salam and so on? So they did a very focused and sophisticated campaign by the time, and they used to give gifts and what have you to the priests around the negus and to make sure that they put as much influence, what you can call right now is mobilization and campaigning, and the Muslim minority got together, put their thoughts together, selected somebody to speak on their behalf, which is Ja'far radiallahu anh, and they spoke and they defended themselves, and there are not a lot about what their life looked like in Abyssinia at the time, but there is enough to tell you that they were actively participating in the political matters of Abyssinia to some extent, and they used to support Nagas because he knew that he was a just ruler and he was compassionate. And there are hadith and saying that says that he accepted Islam, that they wanted to make sure that he's supported and gets their support against his competitors. So to make the long story short, Ja'far, when he comes back, the Prophet ﷺ asked him and said, "Tell me a story about something that you've seen in Abyssinia that was unique," kind of a deal. So Ja'far ibn Abi Talib said there was this poor lady carrying food on her head, and that's a common technique in the countryside and in Africa, to carry food from time to one place to the other. This soldier or ruler, basically from the elite, he was riding a horse, so he was on a higher, basically, elevation, and he kicked the food from the head of the woman with his feet, and the woman made a dua against him. It says, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala punish you at the day of judgment to what, the insult that you gave it to me, and or you did to me. So the Prophet ﷺ, when he heard that story, he actually smiled, and he said, how can we, or you think that there is a nation that will prevail if there is a weak citizen who cannot get justice from a powerful citizen that did harm to him? Not only that, it's not just that you go and, for example, go to the court and get justice and make sure that you're dealt in a fair manner, but he mentioned غَيْرُ مُتَعْتِعَ in Arabic, which means when you're asking as a weak person, a poor person, you're not hesitating, you're not basically in feeling that you are a second-class citizen and you're asking for a favor. A good, just nation that is represented by this hadith means that everybody knows that he or she has equal rights to everybody else, and he has the same right to speak out, to be counted and say, I demand my rights, without being afraid of being persecuted because he's poor or he's a minority or because of his race and so on. So the subhanAllah, this hadith kind of made a good impression on me, and it's one hadith that I'll cherish, that alhamdulillah that I got to know recently. And there is no way that you can talk about civic engagement in the US without remembering Malcolm X, Haj Malik Shabazz, rahmatullah alayh. Because there's so many reasons, and sometimes I feel that bringing him into the picture when we're talking about census may be like bringing a sledgehammer to a small nail, but subhanallah, the characters that changed the world around us did not become these characters just because they tackled the big issues. They become such change agents because they tackled smaller issues as well. And I was reading in his biography, and I think it's a must read after, of course, our Quran and Sunnah and so on. But one thing that he was talking about, he was saying, when I give speeches in New York, I see, tons of people coming to attend my speeches, much more than the speeches that were done by the elite in his black community at the time. There was known elite people. Maybe right now we don't remember any of them or their names, but there were popular people that were, I would say, accepted by the government at the time or by the media at the time. But when he speaks, Malcolm speaks, he gets much more attendance, and he was trying to analyze that and says why, and his analysis says that because they spend their time talking to the elite. He specifically, of course, mentioned the white elites at his time, because they were controlling everything. There wasn't that many black governors or senators, or in the early 60s. But I think he was mentioning the elite. These people were talking to the elite. They were trying to integrate to the elite, to appease the elite. While he's saying, Malcolm, I'm talking to everybody. I'm talking to the middle, class citizen or mid-class citizen. I'm talking to the sophisticated, educated, PhD holder professors and so on. And I'm talking to what he calls the black in the ghettos, basically, people that are, he called them the hustlers, everybody. And I think this is something relates to the census. We cannot dismiss anybody: the poor, the educated, the driver, the professor. Anybody and everybody needs to be counted and motivated. And I see this census mobilization as, subhanAllah, as a way for us to practice this engagement, especially in this new era that we are seeing with the COVID-19. Something that hopefully, inshallah, we will, as a community, as activists, as members, as families, we will know by participating. We will, inshallah, we will make a difference. So with that, I would like to open it a little to the question and answers, and maybe I will start with the answer question that I think Brother Muhammad has mentioned or kind of hinted towards the categorization. So if I remember correctly, when I filled in the categorization of the race for me, I did choose white, others, while I contemplated of choosing white for a second, but I decided to choose others, and then of course to give you an idea or an option to choose the nationality, which is a little bit counter intuitive, to tell the truth. So anyway, I picked Egyptian in my case, but I wanted to take maybe the input from the brothers, just to see what they're thinking about the approach for the people that haven't filled it yet. So maybe we'll start with Brother Rashad.
Sure. So the difference between this census and the last census is that under the white category, you did not have an option to fill out your ethnicity. Now, the Census Bureau follows the Office of Management, Budget, Race, and Ethnicity Standards, and based on research, there's more research needed before we proceed to implement, to propose to implement a separate Middle Eastern North African category. I know Access California and many other local and national organizations have been working on this issue, but at this point, we still follow the guidelines of the Office of Management and Budget on Race and Ethnicity. So again, the difference is that now you can actually fill in the blank under white and identify as Egyptian or Lebanese. A lot of folks are saying, no, we're going to put other. That's based on how you identify yourself. So that's from a Census Bureau perspective. But if CAIR, if Fayaz or Muhammad would like to talk more about the how our community organizations are encouraging folks to fill out the forms, that's fine. But I'm speaking on behalf of the US Census Bureau and the guidelines that we follow.
Brother Fayaz?
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. So as far as CAIR is concerned, what we are doing is we are a trusted messenger with the community here in the California area, and I'm sure many of you have seen us already. I know we've partnered several times with Rashad and the local representatives from the US Census on really trying to get our community engaged with the census. And the ways that we're doing that is, first, we have marketing materials, whether it's banners, even we have tablecloths that show US Census, California Census, and CAIR California. Also, that way when community members, when they see it at the masjids, at their community centers, at their family nights, or at like festivals, they get more and more attuned to seeing census as something really important. Even at the mass GLA convention, we also had a booth and we had a little census materials over there, and the community members, they came by and they filled out their census surveys at the mass convention. The other way we're doing outreach work with the Muslim community here in the California area and the MENA community in general is we are doing khutbahs, and we dedicate at least the last 5 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes of our khutbahs, Friday sermons, to talk about this. Basically, a very short summary of what we discussed throughout this entire webinar. And what I'm finding is after our khutbahs, community members are coming to our census table and like filling out their census pledge cards that they're going to pledge to fill out their census surveys once they receive it in their homes, either with the physical copy or the online version of the census survey. The other way that we're also reaching out to the community is we're partnering with many of our masajids in the region. It's a little difficult right now because of COVID-19. However, because of the creation of the Muslim Complete Count Committee, we have 23 members of the Muslim Complete Count Committee, including MAS, including AccessCalifornia, including many of the masajids that you all attend, and many of the community-based organizations like ICNA Relief, like AccessCalifornia, like MAS. We're partnering with them to really try to coordinate getting our communities educated on census. With the masajids, what we have also done is we've been able to get some funding from the state to get it to the community centers, to have like posters about census or banner about census, or give us an opportunity to go and speak to the community at family nights or at community potlucks or what have you, and really trying to do the grassroots work of getting our community engaged. And finally, we started our canvassing campaign a week ago. Unfortunately, because of COVID-19, we had to cancel our canvassing campaign, which is knocking on doors, in particular knocking on doors from the MENA community. We had to cancel that, but now we're switching over to more of a digital organizing and digital phone banking. So you're going to be getting a lot of phone calls from our office to make sure that A, you received your census survey, and B, to fill out your census survey, and will be available to answer any of the questions of community members that we are calling.
Jazakumullah khair. Brother Muhammad, do you have a follow-up?
Yeah, as first to Brother Rashad's or your question and Brother Rashad's follow-up answer, what AccessCal is telling individuals is when they are filling out the census to put other, we're really trying to push the MENA back onto the census. So if you can fill out the other, put the country you're from, put in parentheses MENA, just so we can, you know, spread the message and try to get that done in the next census. As for how we're spreading the word, just like exactly what CAIR is doing, we're giving khutbas, we're spreading it out at local events, you know, especially at the hard to count population, not just the Muslim centers, but also, you know, at shelters, at, you know, when we were able to, we were going out of grocery stores. We were trying to really spread the message in the hard to count populations. We're really spreading the message now since everything is on lockdown, online, through social media, through phone banking. We're really trying to push and make sure that every person is informed and aware of, you know, the 2020 census.
Jazakumullah khair, great effort. Another question that comes to my mind, which I'm not sure if we've addressed it, maybe indirectly, is the immigration status. So we have folks in our community and outside the Muslim community. There are citizens, there are green card holders, there are visa holders, of course, with the whole backdrop of the Muslim ban. And then you have also people that are what they call them illegal immigrants, but people that are undocumented, basically. Do you have a take, Brother Rashad, on if it makes a difference or maybe ease the concern that people might have based on their immigration status?
Yeah, so when we say we want to count everyone, that means every single person who lives in the United States. So it doesn't matter what legal status you have, as long as you live in the United States, you must be counted. And again, we addressed this earlier, but the citizenship question is not going to be on the form, and the answers are confidential. We will never ever share it with any other agency. So everybody gets counted where they are on April 1st, and the only people that I can think of that don't need to be counted are exchange students that are going to go back to their country in a month or two. But even international students are counted. People who live in the United States must be counted regardless of their status.
Another question about the timeline. It seems that there is some news that it might be already decided to push the date by 2 weeks, maybe due to the COVID-19, to be like mid-August for the enumerators. But do you expect any more significant delays? I know that the general guideline is to do it as soon as possible, get it over with, like voting or taxes. But you know, there will always be cases where people comes a little bit late. So any suggestion or maybe advice? I don't know if Brother Fayaz, you want to take first?
I think probably be more for Rashad to answer, because he gave the timeline for the extension already, I think. Can you tell us again the time? Because just to let you know, literally last week on Wednesday, the head of census for the entire nation released their statement saying, hey, we're canceling all of our canvassing efforts right now. So we're getting information like day to day, and we're trying to catch up to as much information we're getting from the US Census folks, including, I'm sure, Rashad, did you all finalize those dates or the delays last week or earlier this week?
Yesterday.
Literally yesterday. So like, we don't even have all the information. We're trying to get whatever we're getting from our good friends like Rashad or other partners from partnership specialists at the US Census. We're just trying to take that information and then implement it. So I would hand this off to Rashad.
Please, thank you.
Yeah, so the Census Bureau is going to continue to monitor this situation, and if any changes are needed, we will adapt and make sure that everyone has an opportunity to be counted, and we have the most accurate count we can get. Currently, any efforts, any events, any efforts to engage with residents have been canceled until April. Our mobile questionnaire assistance effort have been postponed and put on hold actually indefinitely. These were mobile assistance efforts to go to communities and help them fill out their forms. Now that's on hold. Our non-response follow-up, which is basically sending out enumerators to knock on doors and help folks fill out their forms, the folks that did not do it online by phone or by mail, that has been postponed to May 27 until August 14th. So the last day to fill out, to complete your forms is now August 14th. However, things are changing rapidly and we don't know what's going on. But as of yesterday, these were the new dates that were announced by the Bureau.
And I think with that, unless somebody has an important, thought to share, I would like to conclude. I would like to thank all the brothers, Fayaz Nawabi from CAIR, Muhammad Hijazi from Access California, and Rashad Dabbagh from the Census Bureau. And on behalf of the Muslim American Society Mass, Greater Los Angeles, the PACE chapter, I would like to thank everybody. And I will wrap it up with a quick dua. ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين. اللهم اكشف عنا البلاء لا إله إلا أنت سبحانك إنا كنا من الظالمين. Oh Allah, make us agents of change, make us proud of our religion, make us support the vulnerable and the weak, and make us agents of implementing justice and speak the truth to everybody and to anybody and forever. Jazakumullah khair and assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.